Hi, we're talking about climate change and what it is and how it affects us. So, climate change is the change in a global regional climate pattern. So, over 30 years at least, um, you need to initially get your information. But it's the burning of fossil fuels and a large amount of carbon dioxide being in the atmosphere, which is causing the temperature globally to rise, which then is causing things like the El Nino and La Nina, melting glaciers, rising sea levels, which those go pretty hand in hand. So when the glaciers start to melt, the sea levels will start to rise, and then in turn will cause flooding, um, things like that. Then heat waves, which was the raising of the temperature, as stated. Then wildfires. Now, the wildfires are um, happening because of climate change, because we are um, changing the global temperature. Now, something that we can do, or one feasible thing that we can do to help curb climate change or to slow the drastic changes that it's causing, is by doing something as simple as planting a garden. So, we in the US have a lot of food waste. We package all of our food in usually plastic, um, which takes a very long time to break down, and most people don't recycle. So, 40% of our food is completely waste, and that just goes directly to our landfills. Um, Now, 10% of fossil fuel burning goes into making food. Now, you have to have machines running to um, get the vegetables out of the fields, or you have cows that are excreting more CO2, and yeah, so then when we ship it, we're in turn using fossil fuels to get that to your home, or in a vehicle which uses gasoline and oil, things like that. Um, so 10% of all fossil fuels burned come from your food, and 40% of all waste in our landfills is from food. So those right there can be used to help curve climate change. Um, Having your own garden will reduce waste, will save you money. You get the benefits of having your own homegrown. You don't have to worry about any pesticides, anything like that, which is another form of pollution. We don't want to have the water runoff of pesticides, or pesticides getting into our water table, um, and causing growths of things. Um, and then also through photosynthesis, those plants are absorbing some CO2, um, in order to grow and get bigger, and you know. So do I do this at my own house or own home? Yes, I do. But unfortunately, I live in Michigan, so in the winter, it's a little more difficult to have a garden, obviously. So, um, things like my herbs and yeah, little small things like that we do grow. Now, by growing a garden and using that garden for only for 20% of your food intake, so there's 80% still of your food intake that you're not using from your garden or a garden, can decrease your carbon footprint by almost 70 pounds a year. Now, that's a lot, and if you think about over the time span of your life, if you live 70 years, that's a lot of waste in a huge footprint that you are not leaving anymore. Now, the human element, after I watched this, I was actually really surprised, I guess, by. I knew most things such as wildfires, the flooding, glaciers melting, things like that, but I guess I didn't think of it in terms of what it does to humans. And asthma, that was one thing that stood out, was the amount of kids that have asthma, the growing number of cases, and what how we are causing that. I didn't realize that there was actually schools and that kids, I guess, or even people, that it could get to that degree. So that was really eye-opening, I guess. Now, wildfires, I knew about those, like I said, but with it burning through 91% humidity, that's almost, you get wet in 91% humidity by just walking outside, and you would think that, water counteracts with fire, that would be putting it out, but it still managed to burn through that, which should be eye-opening to lots of people. So burning fossil fuels, when you burn them, we've learned that you change the chemical makeup of them, and they are no longer what they once were. So they can no longer do or break down the way that they did before. And lastly, the melting of glaciers and the sea levels rising, which has been causing a lot of flooding. So in areas we're having dry spouts, and then in other areas we're having flooding from too much water, from the glaciers melting. It's kind of crazy that our world is doing this, and I believe that should show us humans that we need to do better and make a change, whether that be growing a garden or doing something different that substitutes or works better for you. Just try to do something that would reduce your carbon footprint.